This week.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast number 26. We are already at the 26th episode, and I hope soon we'll be having a new listener. One guy that was used to live in a White House and now will be soon, no employment. So if he has a lot of time, he can be the next listener of the Creative Insider to find inspiration maybe for a creative career, maybe as a stand-up comedian. And by the way, you know who I'm talking about, and this guy is rich. I'm not rich, and this podcast is for free, so you can just support it by going on social media at TCI Podcast on Instagram or the Creative Insider on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can follow the podcast, and this is the way you can support. Today's guest, the guest of today is super awesome. It was one of my dream guests. It's Fabio Palvelli. He's one of the organizers of the D2 conferences, which are about Archviz and computer graphic art in general. So enjoy. He talks a lot about business. He is a mentor. He is supporting businesses a better job. So it's not about Archviz that much as it is for innovation, for self-improvement, and for business knowledge. So enjoy the podcast.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, Fabio. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Georgi? Is it correct to call you Georgi? Because I don't know. How did they call you in Italy? How do they call you in Germany?
Oh, in Italy, they call me everything. But in German, it's exactly right. Georgi.
Georgi.
I mean, you've been to Bulgaria. You must have met some Georgi. There's so many there.
Yeah, of course.
I'm so happy that finally we managed to do a podcast with you because you have been busy the last few months, but finally you're set up, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
I actually feel sorry for you. I mean, to have me as a guest on your podcast, it means that this is the end. It's like you cannot go any lower than this. We just get Fabio.
Come on.
It's been everywhere. It'll be in my podcast as well.
No, that's not true. So how are you? You moved finally in Switzerland, right?
Yes, we're now in Zurich. This is the place where we're staying for the next few years. And everything is fine so far. I'm still not completely moved, meaning I'm still missing a few things from going back and forth between Austria and Tel Aviv and everything else. Hopefully by the end of this week everything should be final. I really hope so, because it's been 3 months in the making, this move.
Yeah, I've been following everything on Instagram, so I feel you. But I told you in our pre-chat before the podcast that I know you. I don't know, accidentally found your YouTube channel a few years ago, and I've been following you. Not always very constantly, but pretty much I've been always following you. And you can a little bit introduce yourself to the audience, because I don't know if everybody gonna know you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for following me. I'm always very curious to know who the people that follow me are. My name is Fabio Palvelli. I'm one of the co-founders of the D2 conference in Vienna, which is the biggest conference for architectural visualization that there is. It always feels so uncomfortable to say that, because it's like I'm trying to brag.
But it's the reality.
I founded the conference together with Jason and Christian. These are my two partners. We also had a visualization office at one point together. I worked as a visualization artist for a relatively long time. I did it in and out. I worked a lot for the guys from Chaos Group, and also V-Ray for Cinema 4D before it was bought by Chaos Group. I did all sort of things working in the 3D and architecture visualization industry. But at the moment, the thing that takes most of my time is this consulting company that I've created a few years ago, where we work with creatives and we help them trying to find their voice in the market and make it as more, I don't want to say successful, because successful, it's a very vague
I mean,
term.
everybody have their own measurement of success. So
But I help them with understanding how to run a better, more original, more even original. It's such a bad word, because they're throwing all these words at you these days that it's like every time they're trying to say something, you sound like a commercial of a car shop or something. But anyway, yeah, I work with like creative companies, and we do strategy, we do marketing, we do positioning, and I try to help businesses grow in the direction that they want.
Yeah, I've actually recently found out that you are also working with one of my former guests, Federico Biancullo.
Okay.
So the world is not that big. I mean, now I'm interviewing a lot of people from the Archviz because, as I many times said, this community seems to me pretty friendly.
Yes.
Somehow it's way friendlier than the architectural one, because the architects kind of hate each other, and
that baffles me. Like, I will never understand that, and to a certain extent I think that something is happening also in the architectural visualization community, but maybe it's only me, I don't know.
Well, if something is happening, you're gonna find out for sure, because I mean, you're the biggest conference. You have a lot of connections. But I'm curious to know your story from the beginning, because I actually, you told me you're curious why people like, who are the people who follow you. I mean, I've been, when I was a student, I was very curious to make good images for my projects, and then I found your channel where you were talking about that, how this form of representation architecture is on academical level very underestimated. And in the beginning, I didn't know who exactly you are, but then I figured out you are from Napoli, and then you've lived in England. So, how, at what point of your life you decide, first of all, how it started, the idea that you're gonna? I think you're formed as an architect, right? You studied architecture.
Yeah, I did. I studied architecture, and I also did a master in engineering from the School of Architecture, but it was about engineering, and I graduated with a thesis on digital design. I had a major in digital design. The interest for digital design was always there since I started with architecture. I don't know, we're gonna probably touch on this, but one of the very first experiences that I had with an architecture office was an architecture office during an open day in London, and they had these beautiful animations and renderings of buildings that they did. And when I saw that, I said, oh my God, I need to figure out a way to do that as well. I started to study architecture in 2005, and at that time there was not a lot of stuff that you could find online. YouTube started in 2005, so you can understand, before people figured out how to make a video and put it online, it took them a few years, put it this way. And so, that interest was sparked in me since the very beginning of starting my architecture career. I don't know how far you want me to go with my story, meaning like,
No, but I'm curious. For example, did you go to England specifically to study, or because I roughly remember that you were saying in one of your videos that you started a little later, as usually you were first working there, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so I left Italy when I was 18, and then I got the call to go back to Italy because I had to be a soldier, that before there was that in Italy. And so I did. I went back, I did my soldier. And then as soon as I was done, I left. I went to Ireland. In Ireland, I had a contact, somebody that could give me a job as a dishwasher. And I did that for a little while. And then they asked me, hey, would you mind like peeling potatoes? And would you mind doing that? And you gotta make the pizza dough. And I had no idea. All that stuff was like, I'd never done that. I'm Italian. My mom would have cooked for me if I was still living there. I would have never had to learn how to cook. But that experience propelled basically my very first career because I started to work as a cook. And I worked as a chef. I did it extensively, also for very important restaurants in Ireland and England. And for a period of like 4 or 5 years, that was my job. I was a cook. I learned pastry. I managed to land a job as a private chef at a millionaire house. I cannot say who that was. And this person had a Michelin chef working for him. This guy taught me how to make pastry. And then after that summer where I learned the pastry, I landed a job in Ireland. I went back to Ireland working as a pastry chef for a very big restaurant in Temple Bar. And then at a certain point, I was like, I guess I could do a little bit more with my life. Maybe there is something more that I could do with my life. And around that time, I tried to connect the dots, thinking, what is it that I like to do? What are my passions? What are the things that drive me? And I landed on architecture. And so to do architecture, I was already 24, 25 at the time. The universities in Italy, they would not take me because everything it's like limited. You have to do an exam and then they look at your curriculum, and it's a little bit difficult. In England, instead, they had these mature students sort of like enrollment, and there were some universities that were specialized in enrolling mature students. And one of these universities was the South Bank University. I applied. They called me in for an interview. I went there and they said, okay, you have an offer from us if you want to come. To be honest, it was very close to where I was already living. And I was like, this is perfect. And I just started to study.
So you started with a bachelor in architecture, and then you did a master in engineering?
Yes. Then what happened is that after I finished studying, I met who then became my wife, my wife Undine. At the time, it was in 2009. We met in London, and she was from Vienna. During that summer, I got an internship working for a software company that was selling CAD programs in San Francisco. I went there. Things did not work out. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go back to Europe and I'm going to figure out a way to move to Austria. She's from Austria, my wife. And I'll see if she still wants me.
But that's a crazy story, man. I didn't know that story. I think it's in Italy we have this way of saying you need to be a little bit Napoletano. I mean,
Yeah.
because the people from Naples are renowned that they can settle everywhere and be as you said, I mean, successful. Like they can manage to survive everywhere. So very adaptable.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
honestly, this is a bit of a blessing, but also a curse because we get educated in a way that, everything makes soup, right? That's what we say. But then at a certain time, you need to snap out of it because that kind of mentality can actually hinder you in your potentials. And this is something that I hope we're going to touch on a little bit later, because this is what I made my life mission to teach the people that come to my YouTube channel or the clients that I work with, to really understand where there is the value in the work that we do.
Yeah, I mean your channel is very educative, and that's why I was listening to it, and I'm listening to it, following it a lot. And so you didn't manage to. I mean, you didn't work out in San Francisco, and you went back to Europe, I guess, to Austria then. And how did you settle there to find a job? And I mean, I guess in the beginning you didn't know German.
No, 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 no. It was a struggle. It's a funny story because when I got there, there was this university, the main university, that did not want to accept me. It's a very long story. I'm gonna try and make it as short as possible. But they had this experimental master that um, they were. I don't know. I don't remember really how the story was. In a way, I managed to slip into this course. It was a course that was a little bit of a renegade course inside the university. I actually managed to get in for free, which was like, whoa, I was blown away. The fee, the joining fee at the time, I think they were like around 5 grand or something, and I definitely could not afford that. But the problem remained because I was running out of money. I had saved very little money working in England the summer before moving to San Francisco, and San Francisco was very expensive, and so we needed to figure out a way for me to get a job. And actually, during these studies, before graduating, I spent 3 summers in Norway working as a tour guide. And during my time working as a tour guide, the one of the conditions that I could get a job as a tour guide was for me to be able to do the tours in German. And so I actually learned German in Norway because
Oh, that's so crazy, man! Like, and we didn't want to start from the beginning. I mean,
yeah.
that's the best. I don't know. I'm looking forward for if you say this is just the beginning. I want to know the rest.
And
And
it was crazy because like my wife made this 15 pages script of the whole tour that we were doing with the tourists in this city in a small village in Norway, and I had to learn it by heart. Like I really did learn the whole thing by heart, and that was the beginning of me learning German. And then I did.
and what happened when they were asking questions?
Yeah, that was the thing that, I had to really think like a computer. I really had to locate mentally where the phrase that the person was asking me was located on the script so that I could recite back the script at the place where the question of the person was. Because that was the thing, the questions are basically always the same. They'll tell you when was this built, or has anybody ever died here? And they ask you this question because basically the place where we were was on a mountain, and it was very. Now I think of the word in German, rutschig. So you could slide down the mountain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it was easy, and it was crazy because sometimes like people would ask me very weird questions, and then I would try to locate the stuff that I knew that I had to say on the script, but I could not find it, and so I would panic and I would be like, okay, say it again. Trying to gain time, trying to remember the stuff that I had to say. It was crazy times.
And from there, how did you land the first job in the architectural field or in the Archviz field? How did you?
Actually, in Vienna, I never really landed a job in an architecture office. I tried really hard, but everybody was like, "Oh no, we can give you an internship because you cannot speak German." At the time, like I was still a lot more comfortable speaking English than in German. And then I was like, "Okay, you know what? Since the the industry here doesn't really require people that are only dedicated to visualization. At the time, there were probably 2 or 3 companies that were doing renderings in Vienna. I was like, let me look for something in corporate. Maybe there is somebody that might need visualization at corporate level. And so I found this company, which was a catering company. and they needed an artist to join an already existing team of artists to visualize things related to um, parties. We were doing bar mitzvah, weddings. We were doing the UEFA Cup. We were doing the Red Bull race. And so they were very weird projects to visualize, because there was a little bit of architecture in it, but there was a lot of like photoshopping, people, and it wasn't like high end work. It was just high volume works, because if a client like Red Bull would come in on a Monday and the race was on Wednesday, they did not care about the quality of the images. They just wanted to make sure that the whole event worked from a logistic point of view. And so we were doing that kind of work, which was very exciting, but it also took a little bit of a toll on my own persona, because this is a mistake that I see a lot of young people do, is that they very often get attached to their job and they take everything very personal. And this is what I was doing back then. I was taking everything very personal. And so the work that we were doing that sometimes was not super pretty, I would see it as, my own work, and it felt like wrong, like I was doing something wrong,
Yeah, of course. Because I mean, when you care about what you do, it's
Yeah, that's the
normal.
thing.
And but how did this first job helped you? Which skills did you gain from this first job? I mean, some initial skill. Did you have already basic knowledge about being a CGI artist?
No. That kind of stuff I developed on my own. I spent a little bit of time working on my own skills by myself. That was around 2010, 2011. So there's CG Architect. There were a lot of like very good tutorials, and I could use that stuff to learn the software by myself. And then I was also working with a. You see, this is where it gets complicated, because at the same time I was running a blog, and this blog was actually pretty big. It was called 3D Dreaming. You probably don't know it because it's a dinosaur. I started it in 2008, but that blog basically launched my future career, because it allowed me to put myself in the middle of an exchange of information between artists and software companies. And so at a certain point, by creating this blog, I had a lot of contacts with very good artists that, would just jump on a call. This was 2010, 2011. Things were a lot slower back then, although it's only 10 years ago. And so, they would help me out figuring things out with Rhino, with 3ds Max, with and then later on with Cinema 4D. And so it was a lot easier, I think, to have this kind of relationships with artists before. Now I don't think that is the case. I see a lot of like people, often fighting also online when somebody asks for help, and people say YouTube, just go to YouTube, just watch this video. Or
Yeah, I mean, I think that just because now it's overpopulated, and there are a lot of people who are not very well-minded, I guess, because I've heard also you've talked about this topic also in some of your videos. I mean, I don't know, some haters which come on your videos and comment your English so bad. I mean, like, what the fuck, dude? Like, just don't watch the video if you don't like it. Nobody forces you to sit in front of your computer and watch a video. If I see there is a video I don't really enjoy, I just don't watch it, and I just don't go on the comments to say, "Oh my god, you're so bad." So
I spent a little bit of time over the past 2 years to try and completely shield out all those negative voices, not because I get offended or something, but because we are the product of our own surroundings. And so if we start to pick up on all this negativity and negative vibes, I'm not saying to people that people should be unrealistically optimistic and always happy, because that's not the case. Even with me, people think that maybe I'm always happy, but it's that's far from the reality. The only thing is that there is really no point in like feeding yourself with negativity. That's the thing, like nothing good can come out of you being always an asshole and being can I swear on this channel? Is it
You can. That's why it's a podcast, because
okay?
it's unmoderated. I mean, if you listen the one I did with Eric
I
from Luxembourg,
but
there
Eric
was
has his own language. Eric has his own language, so it's to me it
no.
doesn't sound like a swearing. It sounds like Eric.
Yeah, he was so funny.
Yeah, I know. I really enjoyed it. I have to say, like open and closed brackets. The work that you're doing, it's really good. I'm very impressed with what you're doing. It's a very good podcast, very well researched, very well paced. And I have to say that the few conversations that I had the chance to listen to, they were very entertaining. So props to you, man, for doing this.
Oh, thank you very much. I think I've kind of trained a lot, because I've watched before starting the podcast. I've heard so many other podcasts. I mean, I told you, even because when I get a job at work, which is like long hours, which I need to do something and I don't really need to talk to people, I'm very good at just putting on my headphones and listen to something, and I enjoy listening to a conversation, because it's like hearing people instead of music. For me, it's nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard so many conversations, and kind of unconsciously, I was always thinking what I like about this, what I don't like about this, and what would I do. And then this year was finally okay. Now, whatever, I'm gonna start somehow and see how it's gonna go. And I said to myself that I'm gonna do this for a long term, to see if it
That's very
work
good.
out. And but that's also the best part, is that I get to know a lot of people. And for example, I can always watch your videos, but I now have finally the chance to get to know you, to talk to you, to ask you some questions, which for me.
Oh yeah, ask away. I'm an open book, like
No, but just your story to me, I mean, I told you it was for me back then when I started. For me, it's always been, I get obsessed with a topic and I start researching like an investigative journalist.
okay.
And then I find people, and I think it. I mean, for me, it was so crazy that somebody that's Italian, it's sort of like a figure in this area, in this business, let's say. Or, I mean, even if you don't want to sound douchey, just the simple fact that you are part of the organization of the D2 conference is not to underestimate. And yeah, and then when I figured out you've been in England, and you have this pretty much international life now, it was surprising for me. So it was interesting, and now hearing your path, it's super crazy story, man.
Yeah, I try to keep it as PG-13 as possible, because of course there is a lot more to it. I don't know, maybe one day I'll have to write a book, because sometimes the timeline doesn't even make sense in my own head. I'm like, I have to go back and I'm like, oh yeah, then I did that. Yeah. Oh no, that came first and then I did that. And I'm like, I've done a lot
for
of
me
things.
it's the same. For me it's the same, because for example, in my case, as I were telling you, I moved. So my dad first moved to Italy when I was 6, and then I moved 2 years afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say I'm like an 80s kid, although I'm born in the 90s, because Bulgaria was 10 years behind, at least back then. So I could talk to my dad like once a week for like 30 seconds, because it was back then with still the phones on the street,
Yes.
street phone with a card. And and then I moved to Italy, and then a few years later, we bought a house, and my mom had a job back in Bulgaria, which was well paid compared to what she could work in Italy, because she could have done a job like you. I don't know, just dishwasher or
Yeah.
something. And she's a engineer, so
Okay.
she had a good job, and she went back with my brother, and I live with my dad, and my dad is a truck driver.
Okay.
So I was always alone, and we were in this house. We were doing some restoration works, and it was so crazy. There are so many stories, and
Yeah.
I also sometimes have, like, my timeline is, I don't know what's happened when. But I think that having a curious background is an advantage, because you're more flexible in your.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes it's weird how life makes sense later on and not during you're living it, right? I can give you an example. Like in 2013, we did the first D2 conference, which wasn't called the D2 at the time. It was called something else. And we did it with the idea, okay, we're going to start something and we're going to do it, and we want to do it because we need to learn from the best. And so we're going to bring the best to Vienna. We're going to learn, and hopefully we can use that knowledge to build on with our own company. That was in the around the time that we started our own firm in Vienna. No, actually, that was 1 year before. Yeah, you see, that's when it
See?
gets confusing.
Yeah, the timeline is always confusing.
And I remember it was around 12 o'clock and the conference was going and it was amazing. And people were like saying, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you very much. And the break was coming up and I started to feel hungry. And then I was like talking to Christian. At the time, it was only Christian. Jason wasn't there yet. And I'm like, Christian, what do we give people to eat? And Christian looks at me and he goes like, I don't know. Like, I usually have toast. And I'm like, no freaking way. What are we going to do? And so I ran to the supermarket Crossroad and I bought a bread knife. I bought like 20 baguettes that were in the shop. I got some ingredients from the fresh food department, or Abteilung in German. You see,
Yeah.
I struggle sometimes remembering the right words. And I get together, I buy this like mono-use trays, I start chopping stuff. And Christian was looking at me like, what are you doing? You look like a madman. And so in like half an hour, I managed to prepare 120 like finger food portions. We had like 50 people at the conference, and I was like, well, at least this is something. And then people came to me and they were like, Jesus, man, the food is amazing. And I was like, you see, if I wasn't the chef before, like 5 years before doing the conference, probably people would not have the food and they would not remember, that the food that was served at the conference was really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And I was thinking about it when you mentioned the conference. Did the first job, where you work for the catering, also help you a little bit with the whole, organization part of a conference?
A little bit. Like I had an idea. We knew how certain things were done, and I've seen it myself because this was a 5-star organization company. And I sat not in many, maybe just 1 or 2 meetings where the basically the project manager was making an offer and was talking about the possibilities. And so I knew how an event is usually organized. But because of the 3D Dreaming blog, I already had organized quite a few workshops, probably around 30 workshops until the time that we did the first D2. And so I had a little bit of experience on organizing events. The reason why I started to partner up with people was because I recognized that I did not enjoy doing things like accounting, for instance. Or one of the things that, for instance, Jason is very good at doing is the art direction of all the flyers and posts that we do. And so I'm very happy that is in charge of doing all the communication himself, because he does it a lot better than if I were to do it. Or he does it a lot faster, although at the moment we're struggling also a little bit, and we might have to hire somebody in the future because the amount of work that we're doing, it's really a lot. But, I think that one of the reasons why we managed to grow so much, it's because we were always very similar in the hierarchy. Like, nobody was on top of anybody in making decisions, and we were very honest about our limitations, and we're like, okay, this is something that we know how to do, this is something that we don't know how to do. And when we needed help, we actually went to look for help. Like, for instance, the logo and all the corporate identity that we now have was done by a company based in Germany. Actually, the guys from Alt-Shift, they are amazing designers, and they have done an incredible job in creating the corporate identity for the company that we now have. And this was just us admitting, okay, you know what, maybe logo design, it's not our thing. Maybe corporate identity is not our thing. And so we looked for help when we actually needed the help, which I think that it's something that, dealing with young designers myself, very often doesn't happen, because people have a very big ego, and because of that ego, they become prisoners of their own version of what the reality should be.
Yeah, also they underestimating those other services you can get as
Yes.
for example, I started the podcast just trying out some stuff, and then my girlfriend, she's a brand strategist, so she gave me some feedback, and of course in the beginning sometimes the feedback was not always positive. And of course, the first reaction you have, it's a little bit, oh my god, that's not true. But I like to read business books. I've said that also in other podcasts, and I've read this very, very good book. I follow also the podcast. There is the Jocko podcast, and there is this guy Jocko Willing. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he has been the commander in chief of some of the battles in Iraq, and he wrote it's called Leadership Strategies and Tactics, a book where he explains how he was used to lead people, in a war environment where theoretically he says it works like a business, just the stake is your life.
Yes.
And one of the topic was put your ego in check. So
yes.
So since then I always try to not see critique as a personal offense, but I try to look if it's a constructive critique and to get the best of it,
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is one of the things that, I'm now writing a script for a new video, and it's a script about how to deal with problems at work. And, one of the things that I see people often do as a mistake is that they bring their own self inside the equation at work, when actually one of the things, and I don't blame people for doing that, is simply that nobody teaches us that. And corporate amplifies the problem even more, because corporate doesn't necessarily need creativity. Corporate needs a system. And so when you work for a company and you go there thinking, okay, I'm going to do my best, and then your best is just seen as useless because it's not needed, this is nothing that has to do with you, and so you should not get offended. You should just understand that you are working for a company that has a system, and you're part of that system. You are hired to be part of that system. Now, I'm not saying to people that people should not strive for more, but you need to know where you're funneling your energy. Because if you try to fight a system like a corporate, then you're going to waste a lot of energy and effort in trying to change something that probably doesn't need to change. if you're doing it on your own, creating your own company and starting your own venture, then this is something that makes a lot more sense because you have all the control. And so I think that, to a certain extent, the universities, they don't teach that because this is stuff that makes people fall asleep. People don't want to hear, they don't want to listen to this type of stuff. They don't want to be told what to do. They just want to figure it out on their own.
I mean, there are a lot of people, they underestimate those soft skills, like that's why I like reading those books, because sometimes it are things that you kind of know, but when you read them, it gets very clear to you. And it's helpful to be more self-conscious, because
Yes.
sometimes you think, yeah, I give my best, but do you really? I mean, it's a very big. There are so many topics, but I've read a couple of books which I've liked. But it's still, even when you read a book and when somebody tells you, it's hard, because it's like
Of course,
it's
of course.
human nature. You're
Of
made
course.
to like, I don't know, overcome other or
Of course, of course. This is one of the things that probably I should do a little bit of a better job myself also when I communicate with those who watch my videos. I don't say the stuff that I say with any sort of like judgment. I also struggle a lot with the stuff that I'm trying to do. Uh, However, the stuff needs to be put out there, because when you start a conversation around a certain topic, if people contribute positively to that conversation, then you actually have a shot at changing things. And I know that because when we started out the D2 and we started a positive conversation about pricing, about client management, about all these things that we try to improve ourselves, working in the field of architectural visualization with our clients, there was a time in which things started to get better. And then come the younger generation, and again, I'm not saying this by trying to put a stigma on them, but when a younger generation comes into the equation, they usually do it with that cockiness of saying, yeah, you guys don't know what you're talking about, we're gonna show you how things are done. The only problem is that this field, it's not self-regulated like architecture or engineering, right? There is no test. You can basically come in at any time, at any age, without any qualification, without even having a mature product. You can come actually into the market with a so-called MVP, minimum viable product, and you can still find clients that are going to buy from you, right? The problem is that every market usually optimizes for the lowest MVP. And so if you are in the market for cheap t-shirts and you're buying, say, an H&M t-shirt, if somebody comes into the market and can produce a cheaper t-shirt than H&M, the market will optimize for that product, right? The same thing has been happening over the past 5 or 6 years with renderings. If people come in the market with a little less better rendering, the clients will figure out a way to work with those renderings as long as they can pay less and less. And so certain times what we need is really to have a conversation about preservation. And it's not a question of like trying to defend something that should die or whatever, that it's obsolete. It's really a quest into preserving a market that otherwise would die if it's not preserved. And that's the thing, that usually what happens in a market that where there is open competition is that everybody who enters that market fights for the minimum price. Those who manage to sort of like survive over time, they're gonna die because they don't have the means to surviving. And the only one that then will survive in long term are those who were charging the right money and they were working at the right conditions, without deadlines that create burnout and without conditions in which you hate your life because the project that you're working on is bad and all that kind of stuff. And so the reason why I put all these videos out is to sensibilize people around this topic, because otherwise, nobody's going to talk. New people are going to come to the market with super cheap prices, cracking software, cracking assets, and then in 1 year, 6 months, they're not going to be doing this job anymore because they simply cannot sustain themselves doing it.
I mean, I've done because when I started the podcast, I was trying to, figure out how the whole thing works. And before you get a guest, you need to work a little bit on everything. And I've done a couple of solo podcasts where I break down some topics, and I've done a similar breakdown of, because the same thing to me, for me, has happened, in my opinion, in Italy, where, due to, I don't know, many factors, a lot of, for example, architects are and students which are graduated, they have this mentality that they're just out of university, and they're not supposed to get paid, so they start these internships where they're not paid at all, or paid
Yes.
something but which is unsustainable, as you were saying. And I was breaking down, like, if you think about it, you spend generally between two, I mean, considering you need to complete also, let's call it a high school degree. So basically, you're forced to spend 10 years in education to become an architect, for example. And it's generally years in which you don't work, or you work not as a full-time job. And you also, your parents invest money, or you invest money to get educated. So in the end, if you do like some very basic calculation about the money you could have earned with the minimum wage in the region you live, plus the money that your parents spend to feed you and to get you the books and to get you, I don't know, all the infrastructure you need, you spend many thousand euros and a lot of time of your lifetime, and then you're willing to accept a job for free. So it's I think it's the same thing when you're ready to settle down to get paid less because somebody's doing it. And I've made a similar analogy in another podcast with I had over Samuel for Level Archviz,
Mm-hmm.
and was saying, well, it's like if I want to buy a t-shirt from Armani, and I go there and I want to buy the t-shirt, and they tell me it costs 100 euros, and say, well, at H&M I found it at 20. And then they will tell me, they won't tell me I'm going to sell it mine for 20. They're going to tell you, buy, go get it somewhere else. So it's a similar way of thinking, and I'm totally agreeing with you on this, because um, I'm seeing it in a lot of fields, not only in creative field, all over the place. And globalization is also a little bit a tough one, especially in the Archviz, because that's there are so many more Chinese companies, for example, or I mean, based in some countries where it's easier to
Oh yeah.
get.
Like the whole. I was in India, and I had the chance to talk to a crowd of people in Delhi and in Mumbai, and it was fantastic because I was like, okay, asking people how much do you charge, and those guys, even though they had a chance to deal with clients in Europe, they had absolutely no idea what was happening in Europe, economically speaking. Like, you tell them, that if I go on a lunch meeting with a client, I'll easily spend 100 euros just to discuss a possible project together. And they'll be like, okay, so wait, we're doing 3 images for 100 euros, and you're telling me that you have lunch with that money? I'm like, yeah. And so, it's like sometimes it's just, as I told you, it's about having a conversation and make that conversation as loud as possible for people to hear. I don't care if people, you need to understand that every day it's a little bit like the story of the lion that gets up in the savannah and then the gazelle has to run faster because otherwise the lion eats it. We get up every day and we make decisions how we decide to live our lives. At a certain point in my career as a 3D artist, I got tired that all of the parameters that were driving the the motivation of my clients were, okay, we need to make money, so push the bed into the wall so that we make it look like there is more room in this bedroom, or like remove the chairs from the back so that you can move the table a little bit further so that it looks like it's a bigger living room. And I'm like, okay, I understand that your goal is to make money, but then how am I contributing to the whole artistic discussion by doing things that, only add value to the work that you're doing and you're just using me as a service provider? And so, I started to ask myself questions as of, how can I be more relevant? How can I be more relevant? And again, there is no judging in me saying these things. There are people that are perfectly fine making that type of work because they find their own motivation in doing that. Myself, I started to ask a question, which was, how can I contribute more to the life of people that I care about? And the people that I care about, especially from a business point of view, are other 3D artists. And so I was like, okay, I am doing this job working for at the time was V-Ray for Cinema 4D. I get sent all over Europe to do these workshops. People come to me and they have questions, and then the conversation usually unravels and we start talking about client management and what are certain things that you have to tell to the client so that they don't keep coming back with like changes, and how to avoid useless interactions from the client side, because those are all things that add to the well-being of an artist. And so I started to realize that there was a market for things that are not taught in school, not for architects, not for Archviz artists, not for even like graphic designers. And so I was like, maybe there is a way for me to continue navigate the waters of this market and maybe do something a little bit different, because this is what really being an entrepreneur is about. You need to think that you're not in a field where the rules are very precise. You're almost like if you're navigating a sea, right? And your goal is to keep your head above the water. Now, you will see some companies, say Mir or Luxigon, sailing with their beautiful yachts, and you're maybe hanging on a wooden plank. But your goal is to try and figure out how you can stay with your head above the water. That's what I did. I started to do very simple exercises. One exercise that I started to do was reading a book a day, at least 2 minutes. And so I will place a book beside my toilet, because for sure that book is going to be seen during the day.
Everybody has read the shampoo ingredients at some point in their life. Before smartphone, there was entertainment there.
That's the thing. And so I really started to get this thing going. And then I started to do, it might sound like bullshit to some people, but I started to do visualization exercises in my head where I said, okay, as of now, I am a creative consultant, and that's what I'm going to tell people. the first job started to come around 2016. I could not believe that people would actually pay me to talk about things that were not software related.
But wait a second, how long passed before, like, between the moment you decide you're gonna do this thing and you got the first client?
So I got the job at at V-Ray in 2015, and almost immediately I started to do workshops. And during those workshops, the questions were coming out, and I was like, would it make sense for us to organize a workshop just where we talk about client artist interactions? Maybe we'll do it a little bit cheaper so that we'll get the curiosity of people. Maybe we could do that. And so at the time, I was talking to my old boss. We said, let me just try and change a little bit the way we do the workshops so that we put a part where we talk about client interactions at the very beginning of our trainings, and we'll see how people react. That was 2015, 2016. Then in 2017, my wife was given the job. She works for the Austrian government. She's the commercial attaché for Austria, and so she had to be sent to Tel Aviv in 2017. And so I was like, you know what? This is gonna happen no matter what. I'll just do it. I'll take the plunge and I'll see what happens. And in 2016, that summer, I already had a couple of clients with which I did a little bit of work together. Back then, there wasn't really a very strong form of how I was doing this kind of stuff. Mostly people, they would call me up and they would book an hour to talk to me. And so we would do it like this. And then over time, around 2017, I figured a way to package the whole thing and sell it to companies in a way that it could be used as a tool and not just as an external consultation. And I've had quite a few clients since then. The most important thing to me is that now I'm happy because I get to help people that really care about what they're doing. They care about the process, and this to me it's the most important thing.
But I think that you have this chance also because, I mean, all the things you have done before that makes you, a legit guy to go to for a consultancy. Because, I mean, you do the D2 conference, you've worked for Chaos Group, for Cinema 4D, you've done a bunch of workshops, and more or less you've gotten some trust, some sort of legitimacy in the field. Because I guess that if tomorrow I decide, hey, I'm going to do consultancy for visualization firms and I don't have any background, it's not going to work out.
But the crazy thing, I understand what you're saying, but the crazy thing is that all the stuff that I've learned, because that stuff I started to learn it around 2013. In 2013, I opened my first company, and one of the things that I had to do was figuring out how to make taxes. And so I went to a small seminar about taxes. And this seminar basically also included how to deal with taxes when doing investments and when doing different things. And so it opened up a world to me because I was like, okay, but a lot of artists really don't think about all this kind of stuff. They just focus on production because that's what they see. That's what they have in front of their eyes. And so they think that their job is to make images, when actually making images is just what you deliver to your client. But the whole development of a company goes way beyond making images. And so, it's very nice when I have the first day of seminar with my clients, when we sit down and we do, it's called the business check, and we go through 30 pages of text that I put together over the years where we talk about the do's and don'ts of companies and how other companies in other fields manage to do the stuff that they do. And you really see a light go inside their eyes. And it's beautiful because then these guys, they go home and they call me 1 month later when we do the follow up and we start talking about strategy, where you see them that they basically shift their focus from, okay, I'm going to make the best rendering and I'm going to be the best artist, to becoming the person that says, I'm going to do everything that I can to serve my clients so that my clients are going to consider me the only person that they trust when it comes to getting this type of service. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I know it on myself because I believe that they should introduce like some basics in education, and not in the university, in school, like in really in school for every kid. Like when you're 16, I think you can get some basics about economics and business, and explain to you that of course you're going to have a passion in your life, but like everything, you make a product. The product has a price, has a it's profitable on a certain percent. There is, so you need to, because most of the time, especially creatives, they get they're super passionate about what they do, so they are sometimes ready to do super long night shifts also, just because they love what they do, but they don't consider they're spending their time working for not the right amount of money, or not doing the job exactly what they want to do. And yeah, I think it's very good that people like you are starting doing such a consultancy services, and I'm glad that there are people which are curious to know more about it.
Yeah, I
um,
hope there will be more and more. It's what you just said. Some people might listen to this and they might say, "Oh, you cannot be lazy. You have to work really hard and stuff." And I've done it. Like, I've done the working really hard. I've done projects where I stayed in the office 72 hours without leaving the office. The outcome of working like this was an absolute disaster. The word, when people say work hard, hard automatically excludes that you should be working also, like, that you should do mental work, meaning, if you want to work hard, then you have to spill your blood on the desk where you're working, right? This is what people would think when you say work hard. But actually, the reality is that if you work hard and you don't use your brain, it's like rowing a boat that it's attached to the pier. You're not going anywhere, you know? It's like you can
exactly.
push it as much as you want. And I'm not saying that it's not useful. Sadhguru says, yeah, it's very good training, but if you don't untie that rope, you can train as much as you want. You'll never go anywhere.
I mean, there is also this hustle culture that's now very popular through figures. I don't know. I might think about Elon Musk. You can see all over the place, like the quote where he says you need to work 100 hours a week, and I mean, not everybody are Elon Musk, and that's and I always think like you got a life, you're gonna die in the end.
Mm.
So and you have to balance also time with your dear one, with doing something which you love, a part of, because sooner or later, if you just do, I mean, it's okay to push for a certain period of time, because I mean, life is also about that. But I mean, on the long term, I think if you need to constantly to push, you're just gonna get a burnout,
You know,
and you
the the
ending up
the problem
hating what you do.
nowadays is that you cannot have the stuff that we're doing, you and I, you creating this podcast and me making my videos. It cannot exist without a little bit of sensationalism. And so Elon Musk has used a lot. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very big fan of Elon Musk, and I think that what he does, it's great. But what society needs to remind itself of is that Elon Musk cannot be an example to follow, because Elon Musk is an outlier. You need to find leadership and example in real life people. Like, really, you should hope to get a job in a company where your boss is a decent enough person from which you can learn from, because those are a lot more achievable results than, say, I get inspired by Elon Musk, and I'm going to do the same thing. I mean, of course you can, but the chances are very low. It's more a normal boss, it's a lot more replicable. And that's also one of the reasons why I try to work with companies, because I see that sometimes bosses, we talk and they say, I don't know how to be a boss. Being a boss, it's not something that you can learn at school, or sometimes it's all about soft skills and the experience that you get learning from other people. And if you learn from very bad people, it becomes really difficult to be a good boss. And so, these are all things that need to be considered. People should not look at life in such out ways, like, you cannot go around and say, yeah, but Elon Musk said that, or yeah, but Zuckerberg said that. Between what they say and what they have done and what you might say and what you might do, there is so much space that, everything in between, if you don't consider it, is just a missed opportunity. And so, I also say to those who watch my videos, look, you come here, I give you a message. If something is not clear, or if something doesn't resonate with you, you don't have to listen to me. You can do it your own way. But if I inspire you to have a conversation with a friend and to actually get a different point of view on the topic, for me, that's already a big achievement, because, it means that I've helped the conversation moving in the right direction. If you have to go online and watch videos, or I don't know, criticize the work of Elon Musk because you're not able to get there, then that kind of attitude is not going to bring you anywhere either, right? Again, people should not think in such out way. Consider that everything is a gray zone, and if you don't use your brain, there is nothing that I can say, or nothing that Elon Musk that can say, or nothing that you, Georgi, can say that can make the life of anybody better. And sometimes I blame this a little bit on our tutorial culture, because people go on the internet, they find a tutorial, and that's what they learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You cannot, there is no magic formula, and everybody needs to find out what fits to you. And I mean, back to the haters, if you hear something that you don't agree with, you still have heard something that it's not suitable for you, so it's fine. I mean, I always like I've read a book about oh my god, what was the architect? Damn. Well, it was not Le Corbusier. What are the other one that's super big historically? Now my it's on.
I don't know, Philip
The German-
Johnson,
No, the
Miss
German
Van
guy.
der Rohe.
Miss Van der Rohe,
Okay.
Miss Van der Rohe. Oh my god, I'm so bad. Well, there is a book which is sort of the biography of him, but it's, I don't know. I never found it in English. It's an Italian edition. I think some Italian research. What is called I think some professor wrote this book about him in Italian one, so it's only in Italian. But so when Miss Van der Rohe was leaving Germany, because when he closed the Bauhaus, and because of he wasn't agreeing with the political situation, and he left for the US, and he brought 50 books with him. And he said, well, I just brought 50 books. I had 500 books but I could bring only 50, the best one. But he says the other one weren't bad. They just were, what made me understand that these 50 are the best one. So uh, I think everybody are supposed to try out different things and figure out what works for them, and not look everything as a judgment or as a super strong opinion. Just listen to everyone and try your best. And I mean, it's not that there is no magic formula for no one. So I
Yeah, I
guess
would say, we should go back to the good old use your brain. That's
yeah,
basically
think, be
what it is.
yourself, think with your head, and don't follow nobody. I mean, because of the as you said, because of the figure, because of the idolatration of somebody, that's not positive. But I'm curious more about to know about the D2 conference, because I mean, organizing a conference is something very unique. You're the only guy that I know that organizes conferences. I was pretty impressed. You had also an issue on Archipreneur, so I
Ah,
mean,
yes.
that was very interesting too. I've read that. Um, I'm curious. So, first of all, on the first, what is the difference between the first conference when you organized the first edition? How many people were there roughly, and how many people join today? Nowadays,
The
I
the
mean,
f- the
this year is a
first
little
one we
different.
had, the first one, it was a little bit different, because the first one we had the possibility that people could buy. Uh, it was 3 days, but people could buy a single ticket for 1 day or for 2 days, and so people could choose which day they wanted to come. I think at the peak we had like 53 people the first year. Altogether, probably we sold 60 tickets, but the ticket was very cheap. It was like, I don't know, $20 or something, $30. I can't remember anymore. Um, the second the second, we had a little bit of an issue, because at the time we were collaborating with a company, which, it was like a marriage that ended. And so we had to break away from that company. And that hurted also the sales of the tickets. But the conference was organized, things were going okay. And I think we managed to sell altogether for the second year the 56 tickets. So it was more or less the same. The interesting thing is that then the second year, this is when we called it the D2 conference. Before, it was called something else. Those were tickets just for the 2 days, and so we managed to. It was good for us because we managed to sell all these tickets, and we did not think that we were going to do that. We actually thought that the conference was going to die. Then on the third year of the conference, we managed to invite the guys from Mir at the time. So we had an incredible lineup. Um, I don't remember exactly who was speaking. I remember that there was Mir. I remember that there was.
But to go a little bit in the topic, I mean, I'm gonna ask you just because of
Sure.
curiosity. But Art, how is the whole thing organized? Because you get the ticket fee, and I guess you have to at least, I mean, maybe pay or cover the whole expenses for the speakers. So for the
Yeah.
speakers.
Okay. So this is something that I'm very proud of. We actually pay for the speakers to come and speak. We do not only pay for their costs. We pay for their for the actual speech. We give them cash money to speak, because in the very beginning, when we were doing this, and we were a little bit cowboys, so to say, we started to realize that there was growth opportunity, but we also saw that in order for us to grow, we were going to exploit the talent of other people. And so around the second and third year, we started to put our foot down and say, okay, if we are going to continue this, we need to offer fairness also to the artists, because we cannot go around talking about artists living a what do you call it, a decent life as professionals without us paying them for the work that they do for our conference. And so we started very small. We started offering them, I don't want to go into the specifics because I don't want to.
I don't want specifics.
I don't want to. I also don't want to alienate other organizers, because I know that it's hard to organize conferences, and eventually, this is. I'm not saying to potential speakers not to go and speak at conferences if you are not offered, to the flight or a speaking fee. Ultimately, speaking at a conference is a great way to put your name out there. And I know people that, because of conferences, they had the chance to really be propelled into the professional world, because of the fact that they got so much exposure thanks to conferences. It's just that we, as D2, since we're a company and we're making money with it and it's a business, we do things a little bit differently, because there are big conferences, like big expensive conferences, where you also have to pay the ticket as the entrance ticket to go and speak, which is to me a little bit ridiculous, but whatever, I cannot really judge there. That's why those guys, they go around in Ferraris and I don't.
But I've heard. I'm also following a lot of videos of. You might know it. This YouTuber Marco Montemagno. He's Italian. He talks about business, and in some of his videos, he was saying that because he organized some events himself, and he organizes some conferences, and he says specifically when there are so many guests, speakers, especially when they're valuable ones. The margins of such a conference are not that big. What you get is, the exposure.
Yes,
as you said.
This is very true. Okay, so let me rectify a little bit what I said.
And again, I don't want to.
No, absolutely.
I don't want to know numbers.
No.
You have to consider this a conversation. Like, if somebody is listening and thinks, I want to do a conference about, I don't know.
Yes.
Making anything, how it works.
Be the kind of person that just bullshit their way out of questions. So we do make money with the D2, but it's absolutely not enough for us to survive only with that. That's the reason why, I teach at the university. This is one of the jobs that I have. I do these consulting things. The D2, it's part of the business as well. We have also worked a little bit with like software companies, also helping them with a little bit of knowledge on the community and how to build their own community. I've done it myself. Sorry, I say we all the time when I talk about my company, but in reality, I'm by myself. So, I have to do many other things in order to bring bread on the table at the end of the month. Can you make money doing a conference? Yeah, I think you can, but an Archviz conference is such a specific field that unless you're charging a lot of money for a ticket, one conference alone cannot cut it. The 2/3 of our earnings go into, paying for the speakers, for the food, I don't know if you know it, but when you come to our conference, you get food, you get beer, you get everything. You don't have to go anywhere to eat. You get coffee, you get dinner, and then we pay also for the traveling expenses of the speakers. And don't get me wrong, it has happened a couple of times where we ran out of money, and so we closed the program. And then some speaker came to us and said, "Listen, we really want to speak." And we'll tell them, would say, "Listen, we ran out of money. we don't have a spot anymore. If you really want to speak, we could make a small slot, but we don't have money to give you. And it would be a trade. But I have to say that over the past few years, we haven't done that anymore because, the system is so tight that we simply cannot allow it anymore.
But I think also you have the advantage that you've done apparently a very good job so far. The editions that has been have found place until now, because I'm part of. I'm not part of the community of Archviz, but I'm an observer, and I observe that I know a lot of through social media, and I see that a lot of people, and I've talked to people that has been to the conference, and it's like the Christmas of Archivists. Everybody are looking forward to it, just for the experience, for the for the community, for the fellowship. It's
Yes.
this feel of fellowship. It's like I think it's like people are very into this. In general, people are into very very much into being part of some community. And when you start going to the gym and you feel like you're part of the people who go to the gym. So I don't know, if you meet somebody that goes to the gym, you start talking about how many reps you do and stuff like that. And I think you have created this thing with Archviz where people are like, yeah, what's how you do that, and have you been to the D2 conference? And so it's I think that's in one thing that Montemagna in his video was saying is that this conference, it might not be that profitable, maybe, I don't know, but it makes you renowned to people like me or to other people, and something that maybe doesn't make you directly money, like on that exact moment, can create lateral flows, which it's also an asset, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so the one thing that I can tell you, and I say that all the time, is that probably everything that I've built in terms of like authority inside this industry, I have done it because of the D2. The fact that the D2 it puts me in between a exchange system of information, between people, software producers, artists. And this was really like probably the smartest thing that I've done myself. Also, the reason why I continue doing it, even though it's a lot more like I make a lot more money doing my job as a consultant than doing the D2. If I did not love doing the D2, organizing the D2, I probably would not be doing it. And, I don't know if you managed to catch the online version that we did.
I've unfortunately I didn't have the time to
That's okay.
follow, but I followed on Facebook because I'm now in the group. So I follow there the posts, and I follow who have talked on the
That's okay.
on.
The reason why I was saying this is because, and this is also one of the things that make me very proud, is that even though we had a very big loss in terms of monetary loss because of COVID and everything, the fact that we had to cancel it, we did the conference online for free. The reason why we did it for free, it's because we said, okay, other artists have been affected by COVID. They had job cuts and they had like clients disappear from a day to another. We need to be able to give back to the community something so that they don't feel like they're completely lost on this. And so we said, okay, we're going to go and do this conference live for free. We still paid people to speak at the conference online. Very important because we promote fairness and we put our money where our mouth is. And we did this conference for a week. Every night it was a meeting point for people from all over the world to come and hang out and have a chat with us and talk about business, design, Archviz. And we did it. And the thing that made me most proud is that my team, they completely stood by my side and said, yes, this is the right thing to do. And like the ability of having built something where everybody's on the same level and everybody's moved by the same mission statement, which is connecting people in creativity. That is something that I think nowadays in the business world, in any industry, it's very rare to find. And again, like I wish that one day I'd be able to say, yeah, all I have to do is the D2 and then I can survive money wise. I'll continue doing whatever it is that I have to do to continue making the D2. Of course, we say in Italy, we are all under the same sky. If things were to disappear one day, because God knows, it can always happen, um, that would be a shame. But for now, if I can keep going and keep doing this, I'm very happy.
No, I mean it's very very useful, and it's I look. I'm not even part of the community, and I've watched, for example, a lot of the speakers on the YouTube videos you have released, and there's so many valuable things, and I got to know things that otherwise you don't get to know. I don't know. For example, I still, I found about from you about people
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know people. And then when I figured out this guy, I was like, oh my God, this is a craziness. And you can say that the way he is as a person is the images he does. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to talk him on the podcast just to understand what the fuck is going on in his mind.
I'm pretty sure he would say yes. Yeah, he's a super nice guy. Super.
Well, I haven't gotten an answer from him yet, but we're gonna try to do this because he's super. I mean, it's about how crazy he is. Because I mean, I want to ask him how he imagines Trump with tits. I mean,
Yeah.
there must be something going on in his head. And yeah, I think you've gotten. I've seen the guests you've gotten. I saw that Chris Do was at one of those.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any content with him, but I mean, like, he's also doing something similar like you do, just in another.
Chris was actually the um, around 2014, 2013. I don't remember. It was like a bunch of years ago. I watched one of Chris's though videos, which wasn't even from Chris. It was from the university where he was teaching. I think it was the College of Art or something. And he was talking about the pyramid of needs, and I heard about the pyramid of needs in a course of architecture about like human design. I don't even remember. It was in London a bunch of years ago. And so I said, okay, I need to find a book and I need to read what it is that this guy is talking about. And so, at the time I could not find the super straight direct connection between what he was talking about and design. And so I started to do a little bit of digging. And the whole reason why I started to become obsessed with understanding value, because this is what I try to teach my students, my clients, call them whatever you want, started because of me getting to know the work of Chris in the very beginning, like when he first started. And then, lucky enough, I had the chance to attend a workshop with him, and then I organized a workshop with him. He came to Vienna. We brought him to Vienna. We did a workshop together. Then I had a chance to interview him a couple of times on the YouTube channel that we have at the D2. I've learned a bunch of stuff from him, and I have to say this. I don't know if how I can wave it inside the question that you have asked me, or actually, I don't even remember the question anymore. Georgi, I'm sorry. This is what I do. I go on my tangents and
But no, it's okay. I didn't ask a question because I just said that it's I mean, it's a valuable thing because people should go and check it out because it's interesting content. It's just, this is also what is also these conversations are about, that we get this content out there, and we need to deepen out a little bit because I said I know you through your videos, and it's so weird talking to you because I've seen so many videos of you and I feel like I know you. For example, I know you like the crazy sneakers. I know your crazy clothes you wear, the hat and everything, and the whole what is called the action figures in the studio and stuff. And it's so weird because it's you kind of have a connection to these people, and then you don't this is sort of a side view or an inside view. That's why I call it a creative insider, because you get to talk to hear something that's different from what you see from the different products the different guest creates here. Because people, I don't know if the majority of people know that you've been a chef and you've worked for a millionaire and you've worked with a starred chef. So it's all these things that it's interesting, although everybody I think underestimate their own story.
yeah, of course, of course. That's a very good thing that you said. Like people should not underestimate their own story. Sometimes I just fall back on the fact that I ask myself sometimes, I've never worked for Mir or for Luxigon, and I never did good enough images to work for them. Should I even be talking about how to deal with clients in the field of Archviz? And then, like you forget, but like artists that have worked at Mir or at Luxigon, they have been students of mine, right? Or people that went to work for big companies, Brick, or I don't know, big names that now are managers or they are in senior positions. They have been put on that path from something that we have done, maybe a workshop, maybe, I don't know, a conversation that we had. I think that sometimes we put too much pressure on the things that we can only see with our own eyes and not with the things that happen in the background. And I think that this is due to the fact that we live in such a hyper connected society that we have lost a little bit the ability to dream, right? This is one of the things that I wanted to tell you. I've learned from Chris Do, because Chris Do, at a workshop once in Milan, he said something like, the difference between somebody that is able to achieve something and make it, take a vision and make it reality, is the fact that that person can believe in that vision strong enough for that vision to happen. If you don't have the ability to dream, then you're losing before even starting. And this to me is such a huge life teaching, because nowadays the majority of people don't have the ability to dream. And I see it also with my own channel. I have people that come to me talking privately and they're like, listen, I've seen your video. Can I please look at your portfolio? I'm like, okay. I'll send them the Behance. It's 5 years old because for 6 years I haven't made images. And they're like, yeah, so with these images you're trying to teach me? I'm like, well, I don't know how to defend that argument. You're right. Keep living your life the way you do. And, we don't have anything to discuss. It's not my job to have to convince you. And I don't know. I think that this is due to the fact that we really need to have the carrot in front of our eyes to run, a little bit like the horse.
And I think it's also what you were saying. I think now we have too much information, so we have also this connection, this net, this social media game that is going on everywhere, where you just try to measure who has it bigger
Yeah,
or
yeah,
nicer.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that people are losing the thing to stop, think about it, and think, okay, I don't know, maybe this guy doesn't have great images, but why is he doing these things, and what else he has done, and what can I, it's what we were saying. Ego is ruining a lot of the possibility that are in front of us, because yeah, everybody looks at numbers, and it's you need to deepen a little bit on different topics to understand a person, the quality of a person.
I think you need to
And
have curiosity, like I know a lot of people that the way they react to the information that is fed to them, they react with a statement. Very little people react with questions, or very little people react with just what do you want to call it? Just like with making an effort to just listen. Like one of the reasons why, and I wanted to tell you this a lot earlier, I like your podcast. It's because you do not talk on top of other people, right? You ask them a question, you let them speak. And this to me just shows a genuine interest in what you're doing, not in the conversation, but in what you're doing. Like you're respecting the process, right? Have listened in the past to many other creative podcasts of people that were trying to make something, and every time it was like a competition to who was shouting louder to have the better opinion. And I'm like, in that way, a communication cannot exist. And so I don't know. I think that people should really spend a little bit more time away from all these medias. Although, it will play bad. It will be bad for me and for my business, because I know the metrics, how I get clients. It's via my YouTube videos. But to a certain extent, if I do think that we need to fix a little bit society, because the you see it, you see it in the political discussion, you see it in the what it's happening with COVID. The fact that there are people that think that this is a hoax, this should make us reflect and think, what the hell is happening? We have people saying that people are not dying of 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 the freaking sickness, and it's like, okay, I've seen it with my own eyes. I know people that have been hospitalized. I'm from Italy. I know communities of people that have been affected, and then
but
you
I
still.
think yeah, that's crazy. But I think it's a little bit like it's I agree with you on this, and for example, I always say, like, I think that the only thing, I know that people that are giving us the indications on what to do, it's they know something more than we do. So I just follow the protocol. I do my best to try to stay healthy, but also I think that if you if there are such a people which are thinking that this is a hoax, or there are people, I think that we lost also the mid measure, because I also question, okay, but we need to give it like more clear terms, because also, it's a matter of freedom, because it's a value that's core in our society, in our Western society. So I need there should be a dialogue between even the craziest people and the most, I'm not for accepting every rule without questioning it, and I'm also not for saying this is a hoax. I think people should use their head, what we were saying, try to be responsible and try to figure out what is, for example, the answer to any question, and have a dialogue with people who have a different opinion and try to put yourself in their shoes, and then response by first listening and then answering. And I've recently, because I don't have so much time to read also books all the time, and I have had some audio books because I go by bike to work every day, half an hour back and forth. And I had an audiobook which is called Never Split the Difference, which
Okay.
is about
Yes.
how
Yeah.
this guy, I don't know if you have read it.
Yeah, Chris
or-
Voss.
Yeah, and it's great because he says the first step in a communication is to listen actively, like to hear what the other people are saying. And what I tried here to do is, to when I have a guest, I invited this guest because I want to know what this guest has to say, and it's not about me talking. Of course, I contribute when there is some topic I like to contribute, but yeah, it's about hearing the stories of others, because my story, um, I know my own story, and I think that I'm the fixed element of the podcast. I'm in every podcast, so people can learn about me, a drop here and drop there,
Yeah.
but they will have the guests, not so often. So that's why I try to make the guests talk and tell their story.
Yes.
So yeah, it's I always try to give the word to and to learn from my guest. But I think your story is pretty unique. I think it's so, yeah, you've done basically everything. But which university are you teaching at? I didn't know you teach at a university.
I've been teaching in the beginning. I taught at the technical university. I've done some lectures also as an external lecturer at the UAV in Venice. And I also, at the moment, I'm still teaching at the New Design University, which is a university outside of Vienna in a place called St. Polten. And it's the only university in the area of Greater Vienna, which it's actually not completely correct because it's right outside, that does interior design. And a few years ago, I was teaching 3D and visualization, and I had quite a few students that then went on to work for some of the biggest names in the architectural visualization industry. And now I'm teaching mainly communication and social media for designers, because when I work with my clients, one part of the work that we do together is how to define a social media strategy that allows you to position yourself and to increase the perceived value that clients have of your company.
Oh, that's very interesting. Is this a private university or just regular one?
It's a public university, but there is a fee. I think you have the chance to get the fee paid by the government if you're good. Otherwise, you have to do it yourself. So it's like semi-private.
And does it enrich you a lot to teach to other students? Because I guess having questions as a feedback
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you see it in real time, like the questions that some of the, especially in social media and communication. And this is one of the things that, for instance, makes me also very hopeful for the future. A lot of the younger kids, 18, 19, that are just starting university, they are not on social media. Like they're completely social media virgins, if you like. And so they come to you with very basic questions, and they want to know how Instagram works, and they want to know how Facebook works. The fact is that some of them, they don't even consider going on Facebook because they see it as a dinosaur that is, like dying. And a lot of these guys, what they do is that they use social media on a very personal level. And so they use things like Snapchat, because Snapchat allows you to have private groups, say, of your friends from high school or from university. And so you can exchange information just with them at a sort of like semi-public way, right? And so there are some tools that you can use on Snapchat to basically have a open network, but just with the people that you really know, which is to me amazing, because it's like, young people, they have that need for social interactions also at a digital level, but they rather keep it for themselves, whilst we were thrown out there with all the other bunch of people, and they told us, yeah, figure it out on your own. And so this is to me very interesting as a teacher, because it allows me to learn every year something new. And it was crazy because one of my students, I don't have a role in this. I'm just saying this because it's like, it really shows that when you understand a tool, then you can leverage it in the way that you want. But one of my students came as a student to me. She was on Instagram, she was on YouTube, she did a few videos where she was doing like makeup stuff, and she was asking all these good questions. She was like, okay, but if I provoke the conversation, what's going to happen? And how do you deal with haters? And how do you deal with that? And I was like, okay, these are all very valuable questions. And then it turned out that she was already a content creator. We're talking about 2 years ago, maybe. And then she made a video. This video went viral. You probably haven't seen it because you're not interested in like makeup stuff, but it went viral, and then she started to gain thousands of subscribers. I think the last year she passed the 100,000 subscribers. She now has a business that is basically based on social media. They do. I don't want to tell you because I don't know if she's if I can talk about it on her behalf. But anyway, she's very smart, and she was able to leverage social media. And I'm now observing the way she does things, and I'm learning from her, So this is the craziest of all things. And I don't know, I think that teaching is something that everybody should do, because when you teach, if you're really doing it with the interest of like transferring knowledge, then you also have to be able to get something back from those who are teaching to. And I think that everybody should do it at a certain point in their lives.
Check out there is a scheme, it's called the learning pyramid, which actually explains it that the most you learn is when you teach, because it's counterintuitive, but it's the way it actually works.
It's very true.
And I want to ask you one of our last question. I want to keep you away from your evening too long. How old are you actually? Because I don't know that.
That's a good question. Hold on, let me wait.
Because I'm
38.
38, because I've seen a few days ago on your Instagram, you posted a picture of you as a younger with the blonde hair.
Yeah, that was,
I was thinking
20 years ago.
I said, oh, it didn't change much. I mean, you're like Dorian Gray. You stay.
Well,
same.
I did change. I changed quite a bit. Actually, I gained a bunch of weight, but this is what happens when you sit in front of a computer, and all the exercise that you do, it's clicking a mouse.
Well, I suggest to the people to go and dig in the internet and find the video of you from Sofia when you told the story about your tattoos.
My tattoos, yeah, that's a crazy story.
But it's been a very big pleasure talking to you. As I said, we can talk forever, I guess, with you, because you have so many ideas and good point of views. I tell the guests that this is just your first time on the Creative Insider.
Yes, I read that.
It's not the last time. So you're always welcome to come back to have a chat about anything. And I'm still lucky because the platform is pretty small and I don't have haters. So it's very nice. You can shout out a little bit where people can find more about you on
Well,
internet.
if you just look at Fabio Palvelli, you'll find me. I'm basically everywhere where I can be. And do not suggest me to go to other platforms because I'm an old man. I'm tired. I cannot do that. It's already a struggle to post on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. It's already too much. I don't need that. Actually, I need less.
And I suggest people to go check all the D2 conferences content, to check your Skype interviews or any kind of interviews and talks that you have on your channels, because they're super interesting. And also for people who are not in the field, it's often very, very entertaining and very
Yeah, I
inspiring.
try to keep it easy to watch for people. But anyway, let me just say, we're now organizing monthly these challenges with the D2. We're trying to
True.
basically make it to give people a reason to keep improving their skills, even though at the moment, there are problems with COVID and people have lost jobs and the morale it's quite low. So we're treating the community like if it was our company, so to say, and we're trying to do our best to bring some good, inspiring, and entertaining content so that people can find the motivation to keep pushing and keep doing better, if you like.
Yeah, of course. I've seen the challenges, they're also super dope. So for the people who are um, able to participate, go do it. Or I think that also for the beginners, they can start and do every challenge and see the improvement they will do.
Oh yeah, man.
So thank you very much. And last but not least, for the people who gonna listen, also to support the Creative Insider, go for the social media. You'll find in the description. You'll find in the description all the links to Fabio too. And thank you, Fabio. So have a good evening. And yeah,
Georgi, thanks a lot for having me. This turned out to be super fun. Um, I don't know. I want to say thank you again for the invitation. Sorry that I kept you waiting. You know me. I'm a very easygoing person. I did not try to play hard to get or anything. I was just
no, I didn't feel
with
that way. Trust me. There are other people who said, "Yeah, sure, we're gonna do it," and then they disappeared. To me, it's fine to get also a no. I always say to the people, if you say no, that doesn't mean now I'm gonna hate you. It means just it's fine. Nobody's forced to say yes,
no, it's
and
better because then you can move on.
yeah. So as you said, you're very, very welcome to come back anytime you want. Also, the other guys from the T2 conference, everybody are welcome to come and tell their story.
Yeah, you should have Jason definitely because he's a very funny guy.
We're gonna make it happen.
Georgi, thanks a lot for doing this, and I'll let you handle all the rest of the maneuver here.
Super. Thank you and bye.
Goodbye.